This is Part 2, Episode 10. The chaotic city walls immediately turned silent as a chilling aura stealthily spread out in the air, causing the crowd to silently shiver. Xian stood in mid-air, his solemn gaze firmly fixed onto Lin Dong. His gaze slowly cut. There are some people in this world that you can't, else it will be too late for you to regret in future. Xian ominously said. Lin Dong spread out his hands, before beckoning with his palm. Immediately, Little Flame's large python tail appeared. Wrapped around its python tail were 9 figures. They were Lei Shi and the rest. I will give you 10 seconds. If I don't see the Nirvana pills, I will slaughter all of them. Lin Dong's voice was calm, as if he was speaking about an insignificant matter. However, his calm tone caused Xian's pupils to shrink a little instead. The city wall was deathly silent. Most people's palms were drenched with sweat as they stared peculiarly at the figure in a distance. None of them could imagine how this fellow was able to remain so calm in front of a practitioner as powerful as Xian. Was he merely putting on a strong front? Lin Dong, on account of the fact that you are a talented man, if you are willing to let Lei Shi and the rest go, I can look past our grudge and invite you to be a guest of my Devil Cliff Empire. At that time, you shall be treated generously. Xian's eerie eyes gently shimmered, before he declared in a low voice. Lin Dong glanced at him, before he promptly smiled. Just as Xian thought the former had momentarily let down his guard, Lin Dong's calm voice sounded out, "Time's up." Lin Dong's mind move. 9 extremely sharp mental energy spears materialized in front of him before viciously waved his sleeve. The mental energy spears took off and mercilessly flew towards Li. Suddenly tightly clenching his fists, he stared at the mental energy spears and at the very last moment, he finally spoke up, "All right, you win." Just as they were inches away from Lei Shi and the rest, the sharp mental energy spears suddenly stopped before they subsequently disappeared. Lin Dong stretched out his hand towards Xian and spoke, "Hand it over." Xian's chest gently rose. Evidently, the rage in his heart had accumulated to a terrifying stage. He venomously stared at Lin Dong, sucking in a deep breath before speaking, "I will hand over the pills when you hand over the hostages." After he spoke, he clenched his fist as a Chinkuan bag appeared. From the looks of it, there seemed to be a rather astonishing amount of Nirvana pills in the bag. As he stared at that rich Nirvana chi, even Xian felt a slight stab of pain in his heart. 1 million Nirvana pills was no small sum, and even the Devil Cliff Empire agonized over it. However, they had spent quite a fortune in order to nurture Lei Shi and Chen Mu. In particular, even though Lei Shi had failed to survive the Nirvana tribulation, with his past experience, his odds of success. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed as he stared at the Chinkuan bag. With his keen eyesight, he could vaguely deduce the number of Nirvana pills in the bag from the Nirvana chi that was seeping out. Immediately, he knew if the opportunity arrives, let's catch up in the future. Having obtained the Nirvana pills, Lin Dong let out a hearty laugh. Immediately, Little Flame flapped its wings, before it shooting into the distance like a bolt of lightning. Currently, Xian had finally caught everyone. Promptly, he waved his sleeves and viciously flung all of them onto the city wall, causing loud colliding noises to sound out. Everyone could tell that he was extremely pissed with Lei Shi and the rest. If they were ordinary individuals, he would have likely killed all of them personally. "Kid, do you think it's so easy to take my Devil Cliff Empire's Nirvana pills? If I let you escape, do you think I will have the face to stay in Devil Cliff City?" Xian's expression was dark as he stared at the fleeing Lin Dong, while a red glint flashed across his eyes. Faintly, it seemed like his face was a little twisted. Looks like he was truly enraged by Lin Dong. As if in response to Xian's words, just as Lin Dong took off, several formidable Yuan power light columns suddenly shot up from behind him, transforming into a light screen that completely sealed the entire area. Savage Yuan power shockwaves rippled from the glowing screen. Faintly, one could see several formidable figures at the spots where the Yuan power light columns emerged from. Evidently, in order to stop Lin Dong, Xian had spent a huge fortune and hired most of the elite practitioners in the Devil Cliff Empire in order to build this large formation. Under the glow of this cage-like screen, even Lin Dong would find it extremely difficult to break through. Above the city wall, countless people stared at the towering light screen, their hearts gently trembling. There was indeed no way to peacefully conclude today's matter. A distance away, Lin Dong instructed Little Flame to stop. When he saw the majestic and large formation, a little astonishment flashed across his eyes. "I have warned you before, it's best to be tactful and not burn one's bridges. With your current ability, you must be naive if you believe that you can obtain anything from my Devil Cliff Empire. Lin Dong slowly turned around. Shishien was already floating through the air, stopping a small distance away from Lin Dong. The smile on his face looked rather sinister. I have given you a chance, however, you chose not to treasure it. Now, you have lost your final opportunity. A resplendent golden glow accompanied Shishien's footsteps as it gradually emerged from his body. Meanwhile, an extremely formidable pressure emerged, causing the surrounding air to solidify. Bang! The rage in Shishien's heart had evidently accumulated to a tipping point. Therefore, the instant he spoke, his eyes turned bone-chillingly cold. As he took a step forward, the air in front it was as if his arms were made of real gold. A golden fist ripped through the air, viciously slamming into Lin Dong's crossed arms. Immediately, a terrifying shockwave erupted, directly blowing Lin Dong off Little Flame's bag. After being pushed back a dozen or so steps, he finally stabilized himself as he felt a sharp pain in his arms. Immediately, a solemn look flashed across his eyes. If it were not for the fact that he had mastered the lesser Nirvana Golden Body, Shishien's previous punch would have directly broken his arms. Nirvana Golden Body. Shishien's figure suddenly appeared in mid-air, staring at Lin Dong's golden arms in shock. He naturally knew that was something only Nirvana stage practitioners possessed. However, from Lin Dong's current Yuan power undulations, he was only at the half-step to Nirvana stage. Therefore, how could he have mastered the Nirvana Golden Body to such a level? It's no wonder you dare to be so arrogant. It turns out you have some skills. However, in front of my as he gently stretched his neck, all the joints in his body seemed to crack. An explosive force squirmed between his muscles, exploding outwards, causing the air to vibrate. Lin Dong deeply breathed out a puff of white air, before he shook his slightly numb arms. Meanwhile, an excited smile slowly emerged on his face. 1 Yuan Nirvana stage. Let's see if you have what it takes to keep me here. On the city wall, the crowd's eyes turned heated as they heard the exchange between the two. All of them were dying to know who would emerge victorious when these two prominent figures clashed head-on. High up in the sky, two figures faced each other. The atmosphere was so tense that it seemed as if the air had solidified. Faintly, a murderous killing intent silently pervaded the air. Numerous pairs of eyes on the city wall were burning with excitement. The two figures in the sky were rather famous in the northwest region. Naturally, Shishien had become famous a long time ago. His 1 Yuan Nirvana stage prowess allowed him to tower over many high-rank Empire's practitioners. Furthermore, with the Devil Cliff Empire's reputation backing him, most people acknowledged that he was an elite individual. In contrast, it was only recently that Lin Dong had become famous. He always kept to himself, and most people deduced that he was from some small empire. However, this did not stop people from developing an astonishing attitude towards him. After all, he was able to successfully challenge the entire Devil Cliff Empire single-handedly. This was something that was not seen very often in the northwest region. Clearly, the battle between these two famous individuals was highly anticipated, and many people wanted to know who would prevail in this battle. I have seen many people like you. When a miracle happens to them and their powers advance by leaps and bounds, they think they are invincible and look down on everyone. However, perhaps only 1 out of 10 of them will survive by chance. Shishien sneered ominously while stepping on nothing but air. Meanwhile, his gaze wandered, looking for weaknesses in Lin Dong's body. In my opinion, you belong to this group of people. However, it's a pity that you won't be the 1 out of the 10 that survives. The foundation of a high-rank empire is not something that your miraculous outburst of power can compare with. Lin Dong laughed. He did not have any intention of squabbling with Shishien. The foundation of a high-rank empire was indeed substantial, but that did not mean they were invincible. With a strong foundation, one would have a more advantageous starting point than most ordinary individuals. However, one's accomplishments in the future would still depend entirely on oneself. However, it was Lin Dong's casual smile that made Shishien involuntarily clench his fists while nefarious flames arose in his hair. Whenever others mentioned his Devil Cliff Empire, their tones would contain reverence and fear. However, the man in front of him did not care at all. Either he was ignorant, or he was simply confident in himself. Creak! As Shishien clenched his fists, brilliant golden light slowly flowed in his body while astonishing Yuan power undulations unfurled like a hurricane. Let's see if you still can smile later on. As Shishien changed his hand seal, surging Yuan power whizzed out, and even the surrounding Yuan power started circling around Shishien. Powerful rays of light burst out, forming a humongous mountain in the sky within seconds. At the peak of the mountain, a huge symbol radiated horrifying energy. As the mountain cut across the sky, it was accompanied by a mighty shock wave that seemed to be generated from a punch. At that moment, even the sky started to tremble due to that mountain. Demonic symbol mountain subduing fist. Shishien's face was ice cold. As his fist flew out, the humongous mountain immediately blasted towards Lin Dong. The powerful shock wave from the punch caused the ground beneath them to cave in. Shishien's attack had displayed the real strength of a 1 Yuan Nirvana stage practitioner. The strength of this attack was numerous times stronger than Lei Shi and his counterparts. Such a powerful attack could easily blow away a Nirvana stage practitioner like Chen Mu. As Lin Dong saw the incoming mountain, which was accompanied by a huge shadow and a pressuring presence, a serious expression surfaced in his eyes. After taking a deep breath, he flipped his palm and an ancient praying mat appeared in his hand. It was the Spirit Accumulation praying mat. Robust Yuan power and vigorous mental energy gushed out almost simultaneously before continuously streaming into the praying mat. The two different types of energy poured into the praying mat. A gigantic pillar of light suddenly emerged from it and shot up into the sky. The unique energy instantly caused the Yuan power around to surge. Shishien looked shockingly at the muddled-colored pillar of light, while his facial expression changed. He could sense that this mixed energy, which was entirely different from Yuan power and mental energy, was rather powerful. This guy can fuse two different types of powers. Clearly, Shishien's eyesight was rather good. With a glance, he was able to identify what was going on and he was overwhelmed by this sight. He clearly knew about the difficulty level of fusing two different types of powers. Even a practitioner, who had passed through a few Nirvana tribulations, would not have this ability, let alone a 1 Yuan Nirvana stage practitioner like him. Reportedly, the method of fusing different types of powers was not something that a Nirvana stage practitioner could master. However, right now, Lin Dong's action had brought him quite a huge amount of shock. It must be that praying mat. Even though Shishien was shocked, he did not lose his composure. His gaze shifted and concentrated on the ancient praying mat in front of Lin Dong. The muddled-colored pillar of light was rising from the mat. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, first finger imprisoning the world, second finger shredding mountains and rivers, fifth finger moves the universe. Multiple gigantic pillars of light then arose and shot up into the sky. A void was torn open in the sky as 5 ancient huge fingers emerged and hovered silently in the air. The fingers' archaicness seemed to be for everlasting. This was the first time Lin Dong had activated all 5 fingers of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Furthermore, they were imbued with essence Yuan power. The entire world seemed to show signs of crumbling under such might. On the city wall, numerous pairs of eyes stared at the humongous ancient fingers hovering above Lin Dong's head. Their eyes were surged with astonishment. Even some Nirvana stage practitioners could sense the deadliness of such a powerful martial art. Lin Dong's eyes were surging with battle fervor. After reaching the half-step to Nirvana stage in addition to the Heaven Symbol Master's powers, he could finally execute the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger to his heart's content. While the 5 fingers were suspended in the mid-air, Lin Dong suddenly swung his arm. Immediately, the humongous ancient fingers lined up and shot out violently. The force from that kind of terrifying impact seemed to distort even space itself. Bang bang bang. Muffled explosions could be heard continuously beneath the huge fingers. Finally, under countless astonished gazes from the onlookers, the humongous ancient fingers collided ferociously with the mountain. Boom. A world-shaking boom resounded in the area like thunder. Even the earth trembled due to the loud noise. As the first huge finger made contact, it exploded due to the powerful impact. Following which, the second finger also smashed into the mountain. Under Shishien's sneering gaze, the third giant ancient finger pressed down onto the mountain for approximately 10 seconds before exploding. This sight caused an uproar among many people. Though Lin Dong's martial art was strong, it was not as powerful as they had expected. However, even though there was a commotion, Lin Dong's gaze did not falter at all. The might of each finger in the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger was entirely different. In particular, the 5th finger had a different fundamental makeup. Hence, it was still too early to be celebrating now. As Lin Dong had expected, after the 4th finger exploded, the most ancient and solid fifth finger finally landed on the bizarre symbol atop of the mountain with a loud bang. Bang. The originally unobstructed momentum of the mountain stopped momentarily. The yuan power around began to freeze along with the sneer on Shixian's face. The two colossus were deadlocked in the sky while terrifying energy waves constantly rippled outwards. These energy waves were powerful enough to make even Nirvana stage practitioners fearful. By fusing the Nirvana stage's yuan power and the heaven symbol master's mental energy, the fifth finger of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger was so powerful that even Lin Dong himself was amazed. Break. Taking in a deep breath, Lin Dong's gaze suddenly turned sharp as a deep voice emerged from his throat. Rumble. Upon hearing Lin Dong's voice, a brilliant radiance exploded from the numerous ancient patterns on the powerful fifth finger, while an invincible and terrifying energy stealthily spread outwards. This kind of power faintly showed signs of exceeding that of the usual manifestation martial art. Upon seeing this, Shixian's eye pupils abruptly shrunk. He watched as the symbol atop of the mountain suddenly collapsed. In the end, the humongous mountain was directly crushed by the last finger with a loud bang. After destroying the mountain, the giant ancient finger was much dimmer than before. However, its remnant force continued to crush towards Shixian. The violent undulations forced Shixian to retreat several steps back, before the giant ancient finger finally faded. Silence swept across the entire area. Numerous gazes were thrown in the direction of the collapsed mountain and the retreating Shixian. After a moment, numerous gasps could be heard from the city wall. Such a powerful martial art. Such a powerful yet strange energy. After forcibly stabilizing his body, Shixian's hands trembled slightly. Soon after, greed surged in his eyes. Lin Dong's martial arts and muddled-colored energy had aroused the greed in his heart. These kind of treasures can't be possessed by someone like you, hand them over. The air in front of Shixian exploded as his body appeared in front of Lin Dong like a phantom. Soon after, he reached out with his hand and tried to grab the spirit accumulation praying mat in front of Lin Dong. Evidently, Shixian had discovered the intimate link between the might of Lin Dong's martial arts and the praying mat. Snatching away this praying mat was a must. Shixian's body appeared before Lin Dong in a flash. However, he did not launch any attacks on Lin Dong. Instead, he tried to grab the spirit accumulation praying mat in front of Lin Dong. It appeared that he wanted to forcefully snatch the praying mat. Humph. Naturally, Lin Dong could sense Shixian's motive. With a tinge of chilliness in his eyes, Lin Dong suddenly took a step forward. Immediately, the violent yuan power around his body erupted with brilliant rays of light that materialized into a gigantic glowing elephant. Saint Elephant Sky Crumbling Tackle. The gigantic glowing elephant was exuding a terrifying yet powerful aura. With an earth-shaking force, it charged towards Shixian ruthlessly. Bang bang. The air beneath exploded due to that powerful impact. Following which, Shixian's eyes squinted before his facial expression changed abruptly into a fearsome one. Ignoring Lin Dong's attack, he did not withdraw his hand and continued reaching for the praying mat. He drooled at the thought of obtaining this praying mat, which was able to fuse two different kinds of energy. If he could obtain it, it would be a formidable weapon in his hands. As for Lin Dong's attack, even though it was violent and ferocious, Shixian felt that there was no need for worry since he had already passed through one nirvana tribulation. In his opinion, even if he took Lin Dong's attack head-on, the latter still would not be able to handle him. This is the confidence of a one yuan nirvana stage practitioner. When Lin Dong saw Shixian ignoring his attack and continue reaching for the praying mat, his eyes ashened. At that moment, the gigantic glowing elephant, which was accompanied by a terrifying force, rammed into Shixian's body ruthlessly. Clank! At the very moment when the collision took place, the crisp sound of two metals crashing together erupted. The golden radiance on Shixian's body was surging wildly as he tried to withstand the powerful impact by force. Under the powerful impact, Shixian's outstretched hand became increasingly slower. And finally, his hand froze while it was still a few meters away from the praying mat. Get lost. As Lin Dong bellowed, his body erupted with a resplendent golden radiance as well. Soon after, the golden radiance began to extend and materialized into a gigantic glowing elephant within seconds. The golden radiance that it exuded was eye-glaring. This time around, a more violent and loud sound echoed out. Just when Shixian's fingertips were about to make contact with the praying mat, his body was sent flying back. After taking a few steps in the air, he was then able to stabilize himself. At once, his face became of being a practitioner who had passed through the Nirvana tribulation. Such an attack would make an ordinary Nirvana stage practitioner's blood to churn. Yet Shishien appeared as if nothing had happened. Shishien stabilized his body. Apparently, suddenly, he took aim at Lin Dong with his finger at a distance. Resplendent golden radiance, which was fused with extremely violent Yuan power, gathered at Shishien's finger with a terrifying speed. This energy matched well with the glittering chilliness in his eyes. Everyone knew that he was really enraged this time around. Diamond heaven-splitting finger. The lightning-like golden radiance began to surge. In a matter of seconds, a golden light beam shot out violently from Shishien's fingertip at a speed that could not be seen by a naked eye. This golden light beam was astonishingly intense. As the golden light beam whizzed through the air, it even seemed to leave down a faint gold-colored mark in the space of nothingness. Lin Dong's eyes tightened as he saw the incoming golden light beam. At this moment, he could sense a strong sense of danger. Immediately, he whirled his palm before a black hole was formed on it. The golden light beam approached ruthlessly. However, at the very moment when Lin Dong stretched out his hand, the golden light beam suddenly made a weird turn in its flight path. Instead of attacking Lin Dong, it blasted ferociously towards the praying mat in front of Lin Dong. It was at this moment that Lin Dong realized that Shishien's target was not him, but the spirit accumulation praying mat. This fellow was indeed decisive. If he could not obtain it, he would destroy it. Undoubtedly, this move was extremely vicious, and it had exceeded Lin Dong's expectations as well. Therefore, when Lin Dong saw the golden light beam made an abrupt turn in its flight path, it was already too late for him to react. Bang! The golden light beam landed squarely on the praying mat. Instantly, wild and powerful energy waves swept across the area. After being hit by such a powerful attack, numerous cracks ripped across the spirit accumulation praying mat before Lin Dong's shocked eyes. The spirit accumulation praying mat was not a soul treasure, and it did not have much properties, except for the fact that it could fuse mental energy and Yuan power. Therefore, when it was hit by Shishien's all-out attack, it could not bear the damage and eventually collapsed. Creak! Crack! The cracks began to extend rapidly. Finally, under Lin Dong's despaired gaze, the praying mat exploded and filled the sky with glittering lights. Sneered at this sight. Even though it was a pity to destroy the praying mat, it was still better than allowing Lin Dong to keep it. However, while the glitters of light floated in the sky, everyone including Lin Dong did not discover that a beam of light shot out from the sky of glittering lights. And because Lin Dong was standing behind the praying mat, he was the first person that the beam of light came into contact with. After it made contact with Lin Dong's body, the beam of light disappeared without the slightest bit of abnormalities, to the extent that even Lin Dong did not discover anything. Lin Dong's face was gloomy. Apparently, he did not expect to be fooled by Shishien, who brazenly destroyed the spirit accumulation praying mat in front of him. Lin Dong clearly understood the importance of the spirit accumulation praying mat. Even an experienced individual like Little Martin would find it rather troublesome to fuse different types of powers together. This certainly showcased the value of the spirit accumulation praying mat. Therefore, Lin Dong suffered a considerably big loss when the praying mat was destroyed by Shishien. Bastard! Lin Dong's eyes looked sinister. Surging mental energy, accompanied by the rage in his heart, erupted and filled the heaven and earth in a flash. Suddenly, violent gales were swept up and storm clouds were formed and thunder rolls resounded throughout the sky. Such powerful mental energy. Did this guy really just attain the heaven symbol master recently? How does he have such powerful mental energy? Upon seeing the heaven and earth were filled with powerful mental energy, the onlookers on the city wall broke into an uproar. Even Shishien squinted his eyes slightly. Devouring thunder palm. A huge, silver, snake-like lightning suddenly shot down from the sky. As Lin Dong struck out his palm, that lightning materialized into a black lightning palm print, which blasted towards Shishien ruthlessly. As Shishien saw the incoming black lightning palm, he did not dare to hesitate. He could sense an odd aura coming from the lightning palm and hence, he did not dare to overlook it. Immediately, he activated his Yuan power and formed a huge palm print, which in turn collided ferociously with the lightning palm. Bang! Lightnings were ripping non-stop through the sky. After the lightning palm collided with Shishien's attack, a deafening explosive sound resounded throughout the sky. On the city wall, as the onlookers watched the two individuals engaged in an extremely furious battle, they licked their lips silently. Clearly, they were very surprised at how Lin Dong could fight evenly against Shishien for so long. Naturally, those who were insightful could tell that Shishien would succeed. After another painstaking exchange, Lin Dong retreated a few steps back. After a moment, he stared at the sneering Shishien with an ice-cold look. Lin Dong, your fighting capabilities indeed exceed my expectations. However, I have already said it's impossible for you to escape today. Shishien pointed to the glowing net in the sky, which had sealed up the entire area. Lin Dong might put up a strong resistance now, but it would be short-lived. After a while, he would show signs of fatigue. When that moment came, it would be an easy task to capture him. Lin Dong squinted his eyes, and just when he was about to sneer, little Martin's voice rang across his mind urgently. Lin Dong, let's leave first. There's something unusual with your body. Upon hearing little Martin's voice, Lin Dong was startled. However, even though there were some doubts in his mind, he still nodded his head. Then, he casted a glance at Shishien and laughed. Do you really think that these things can stop me? Shishien squinted his eyes and laughed coldly. Is it possible that you still got some ravings to say? It's not really considered ravings. I just want to say that your formation is a waste of energy. I will remember the fact that you destroy my praying mat. Next time around, I will make sure you pay your debt. Lin Dong said plainly. With a wave of his palm, an ancient key appeared in his hands. Ancient mysterious key. As Shishien saw the key, his eye pupils dilated abruptly. Soon after, he seemed to sense something and struck out his palm. A huge yuan power palm print was hurled towards Lin Dong ferociously. There's no need for you to send me off. Today, I will kindly accept these 1 million nirvana pills. Next time around, you better be careful. With regards to Shishien's attack, Lin Dong merely smiled. Then, the mysterious ancient key erupted with a dazzling light that engulfed Lin Dong's body. Shortly afterwards, Lin Dong bizarrely vanished from the sky. The huge palm hit nothing but air. As Shishien looked at the empty air, his face turned incredibly ashen. Outside of Devil Cliff City, the outskirts turned silent instantly. Everyone on top of the city wall was stunned as they stared at the spot where Lin Dong had disappeared mysteriously. Evidently, they had never expected that the latter would directly disappear in such a manner. The silent atmosphere permeating the city wall lasted for a while, before several pairs of eyes turned gleefully to glance at a steely-green Shishien. For today's matter, the Devil Cliff Empire had activated all their troops, and even Shishien, a 1 yuan nirvana stage practitioner, had personally stepped in. However, in the end, Lin Dong still managed to successfully obtain the 1 million nirvana pills. His actions were undoubtedly like two tight and loud slaps right across the face of the Devil Sith Empire. Hovering in mid-air, Shishien seemed to have discovered those gloating stares. Immediately, his expression turned even more grim. At the same time, the glowing net spread across the sky began to gradually dim down as elite Devil Cliff Empire practitioners headed towards him from every direction. When they saw the grim expression on Shishien's face, that looked like he was about to devour a human, none of them even dared to breathe. Send my word down, anyone who captures Lin Dong and presents his head, not only will he be given the 1 million nirvana pills in his possession, my Devil Cliff Empire will give him another 500,000 nirvana pills. Shishien's eyes grimly swept across the spot where Lin Dong had disappeared, before his icy-cold voice ricocheted across the sky and entered the ears of those practitioners at the city wall. After Shishien spoke, a burning and greedy glint immediately gushed into countless people's eyes. The total reward is 1,500,000 nirvana pills. If anyone could obtain this lavish sum and use it to attack nirvana stage, one would evidently not have to worry about any deficiency in nirvana chi. The reward for this bounty was truly bordering on insanity. A chorus swept across the crowds, just like a wave, before it reached the entire city. Most of them were first shocked by this large sum of nirvana pills, before their eyes turned blood red immediately. At the same time, some calm and logical folks secretly shook their heads. Even though 1,500,000 nirvana pills is extremely tempting, Lin Dong was no pushover. Since he could easily escape even after the Devil Cliff Empire set up a heavy barricade, it was going to be no mean feat to capture him. It was not going to be so easy to earn those nirvana pills. Of course, there were very few logical and sane folks. After all, 1.5 million nirvana pills was enough to drive most people insane. Shishien stared at that city in an uproar, before a chuckle flashed across his eyes. Following which, he grimly muttered to himself. Since you have offended my Devil Cliff Empire, I will make sure you have nowhere to hide in the ancient battlefield. Lin Dong, I want to see how long you can hide for. While Shishien was issuing a bounty on Lin Dong, the latter had already hid inside the mysterious ancient key domain. When he entered that domain, the mysterious ancient key tunneled into oblivion. Based on Shishien's current ability, he was unable to detect them. Inside the mysterious ancient key, it was the same black stone arena. Right now, it was completely empty and there were no traces of life. Lin Dong landed on that black stone arena before he waved his sleeves. Immediately, little flame leapt out from his sleeves, before little Martin flashed and appeared. What is going on? As he stared at little Martin, Lin Dong furrowed his brows and asked. Take a look for yourself. Little Martin scratched its face, with a slightly peculiar expression on his face. When he saw little Martin's expression, Lin Dong's heart gently jumped. Immediately, his mind entered his body. After searching for a while, half a moment later, he finally discovered the source of the problem. Above his Dan Tien, a glowing ball had unknowingly appeared. Within that glowing ball, glowing threads faintly began to spread out, and they seemed to have formed an extremely obscure and complex mini-glowing formation. Ancient, obscure. That aura caused Lin Dong's heart to sink. This was Lin Dong's first impression of that formation. As he stared at that formation, for a moment, Lin Dong was completely lost. Evidently, he could not comprehend how that item had suddenly appeared inside his body. However, what shocked Lin Dong the most was that somehow or another, he felt that this complex formation was a little familiar. Lin Dong furrowed his brows as he carefully observed the formation. Half a moment later, his expression finally began to change. That was because he discovered that there hovering beneath that glowing formation, there were actually teeth on his dantian, which were draining the energy from within before it was completely absorbed by that formation. This situation caused Lin Dong's heart to violently shudder. That damned thing was actually stealing his yuan power. As rage filled his heart, Lin Dong's mind moved before streams of yuan power hurled forth and viciously slammed against that glowing formation. However, regardless of his efforts, that glowing formation would not budge at all. In fact, its absorption rate even began to increase, and this caused Lin Dong to stop his rash actions immediately. What is that? After trying a few different ways, Lin Dong still failed to accomplish anything. Therefore, his mind exited outside of his body, before he turned to ask little Martin with a pained expression on his face. If I am not mistaken, it should be the peculiar formation that was hidden within the spirit accumulation praying mat. Its existence is what allows the owner of the mat to fuse two different types of energy. Little Martin echoed out solemnly. That damned formation is draining my yuan power. Lin Dong gritted his teeth as he said. If he continued to allow the formation to drain him, should he bother with cultivation? Even though it only drained a small amount each time, it was the continuous and prolonged draining process that truly impacted him. Therefore, he must get rid of that thing. This formation is not so simple. Previously, I went to scout it. This thing actually possessed the magical property of fusion. Little Martin slowly said. Lin Dong rolled his eyes. Wasn't this glaringly obvious? He used the spirit accumulation praying mat in order to fuse yuan power and mental energy, and create a unique yet powerful essence yuan energy. This is no ordinary fusion. Instead, it is a complex and obscure type of fusion. For example, you can actually fuse two or more different types of energy together. While little Martin spoke, a tinge of shock was obviously plastered in its eyes. It seems like even it was shocked by that property. Lin Dong was finally taken aback. When he understood what it meant, his lips involuntarily trembled, before his heart shuddered. This formation was truly peculiar, and he did not know if it was good news or bad news to have it inside his body. There are 3 different types of energy inside your body. Yuan power, mental energy and devouring force from the ancestral devouring tablet. If you learn to control this formation, perhaps you can fuse these 3 different types of energy. At that time, if you used the fused energy to activate your martial arts, it would be quite powerful. Little Martin said. It sounds good. But this formation is evidently no pushover. Previously, I have already tried and failed. Right now, it is still draining my yuan power. Lin Dong bitterly smiled as he said. Based on your abilities, there is nothing you can do to affect this formation. You need to have an object that can dominate it in order to subdue it and claim it for your own use. Little Martin was evidently extremely wise, as it spoke after a moment of contemplation. Lin Dong furrowed his brows. This formation was no ordinary object, and it should have a pretty formidable background. Therefore, it was not going to be easy to subdue it. This formation must have been the magnum opus of a super-elite practitioner. If most ordinary individuals got a hold of it, there might be little that they can do. However, you are different. Little Martin smiled before it pointed at Lin Dong's brain as well as his palm. Even though Lin Dong was secretly shocked by that super-elite practitioner that Little Martin mentioned, he quickly recovered his senses. Following which, he gently gripped his palm before he said, "Are you referring to the ancestral devouring tablet and the mysterious stone talisman?" "Yes." Regardless the background of this formation, the ancestral devouring symbol and mysterious ancient tablet can subdue it. Little Martin nodded its head as it said, "What a joke. Ancestral devouring symbol is one of the 8 ancient symbols in the world. It was born from nature and it possessed the ability to devour the world. Meanwhile, the mysterious stone tablet has an extraordinary background as well." Previously, even Little Martin failed to decipher its full background, with these 2 heavenly objects suppressing it. Regardless who the creator of this formation is, it cannot withstand them. When he saw how convicted Little Martin was, Lin Dong stealthily heaved a sigh of relief. Following which, without further ado, he immediately sat down before he solemnly shouted, "Then, let's begin." "Yes." Little Martin gently nodded its head before it smiled and said, "Seems like it was a blessing in disguise. If you can control this formation, perhaps, it would be extremely beneficial for you in the future." Lin Dong nodded his head, and he did not speak any more. With a burning glint flowing in his eyes, he slowly clenched his fist. He was curious to find out just how powerful this formation was. Regardless of the background of the super-elite practitioner that created this formation, since it was inside his body, even if it were a dragon, it must coil up. If it were a tiger, it must kneel down. Part 2 end here.